of V'ger Please, A Hateful Voyage to the Delta Quadrant, Season 4, Rest in Peace. My name is Joseph.
I'm your co-host, Peter.
And thank you to all of you who are tuning in. Please feel free to fill the old chat up with your hot takes as Peter and I discuss the season that was for us. We have finished all of the episodes of Season 4 of Star Trek Voyager. We have spoken what feels like a minimum of an hour for essentially each of them, including Concerning Flight, which I think we deserve a medal for to this day.
Jesus Christ.
And we also tried to get through all of Star Trek Picard and failed miserably. So we're going to use this as our opportunity to talk a bit about how we felt about Star Trek Picard in the end. Maybe not necessarily going through each episode we didn't review or specific plot points because that feels futile, but maybe talking meta about Trek in 2020 and why Picard failed. But first and foremost, we have a tradition when it comes to reviewing seasons of Star Trek Voyager and having a little bit of retrospective, and that is offering our end of season awards, our end of season awards. And we have quite a lineup for you this evening. I would like Peter to start with the classic top 3 and bottom 3 episodes as we experienced them for season 4 of Voyager. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Let me back up and just say I'm very excited for this. It feels like season 4 has lasted forever in a good way. And I take these little season recaps very serious. I've got printouts, I got clipboards, I got 2 notebooks, I got laptops. Like, I put more work into this than I did most things
You reviewed
professionally.
all the tape, like you were ready. You reviewed all the game tape. I remember you
Yeah,
saying like I was listening. You're listening to episodes we did 7 months ago.
yeah, and I want to, and they're all excellent. I think that's some of our best work. We the first couple in the season 4 beginning, I think we really had some really great stuff in there. Nemesis particularly stands out as a strong one for us. But I think that doing the season 4 rip here is the hardest yet because season 1 and 2 was so easy to pick bad things. It
Yeah,
was so hard to come up with good stuff. Season 4 is the first season that really feels lived in. It's self-referential. Characters are growing, new things are coming in, old things are leaving, and there's a lot going on, and there's a history that comes with each action, and I think it took a lot more thought to reach a lot of the conclusions I did for our awards on this.
same. I I do think that the biggest surprise to me has been that the overall quality of some of the pre season 4 Voyager, which I kind of like had that that I don't know. There's a word to describe it when you think something's bad because you've been told it's bad, but not necessarily because it is. Like your own experiences are sort of like subsumed by the tribal knowledge. But going back through them, there was quite a few gems, particularly in season 3. I think that we enjoyed, but season 4 overall definitely the strongest so far. That's not to say they weren't some fucking turds, and I'm looking very much forward to going through that with you as well. So what do we say for top 3, man? What's your picks?
You've got some very strong contenders in yours, and wherever possible for this, I tried to deviate my own opinion just so we're not repeating each other. Um, I'm going to have to say that my favorite ended up being Living Witness, which is an episode that you, I think, referred to as one of your favorite Star Treks ever, if not for sure your favorite Voyager. And I agree. It's excellent conceptual sci fi. It's a great performance by everyone involved. It is a perfect what if alternate universe that plays perfectly within the possibility of what could happen in Voyager. It's a quintessential Voyager bottle episode without actually being a bottle episode because
Yes.
it that is the future, and we're not being exposed to uh, the the god awful blight of Picard in the process, which is a top 3 qualifier for sure. Um, I put my second one with Hope and Fear, which was our season 4 finale. It was just nonstop excellence. There's 2 excellent episodes that run side by side. There's the we're gonna get home plot line that turns into a massive trap, as well as a completely out of left field consequence moment from Scorpion Part Two. I can't, and I did come up with some stuff, some criticisms eventually
Yeah, I was going to
for.
say, I think it's your favorite episode, but it's specifically the last 20 minutes. That's your favorite episode.
I mean, even the beginning too. Like that was the overarching story of the hidden Starfleet message, or even just the communication with Starfleet through the Herodian relay, was a strong point through the entire season, and that was a great resolution to that. I will go ahead and point out, we mentioned it on the trauma support group, but there was a weak point of that which we never discussed, and that was why Starfleet felt it necessary to use their top level encryption for a message that was basically "Sorry, you're fucked." Such a good episode. I don't care. Uh, and then of course, Year of Hell. The only bad thing you can say about Year of Hell is that it is a bottle episode and nothing ultimately fucking mattered. But man, what a ride!
it, it is the Voyager movie, and two of our three picks are the same. I think that it's hard to watch all of season 4 and not come away with your three favorite episodes being Year of Hell and Living Witness. I stand by Living Witness being my number one and Year of Hell being my number two. My only complaint is the same for you as far as Year of Hell. It's a bottle episode, and there's this unspoken but demonstrated character growth that the characters go through during that two-parter that would have been so cool if it was able to pay off in the series itself. I think
Ironically,
in particular we pointed out like character growth between Seven of Nine really cool for them to have actually had, and then instead it just, oh no one remembers what happened, it's over now.
Seven of Nine's character development through all of season 4 is this dry hump of the same story over and over and over again. And some episodes tell her finding her humanity better than others. But it's ironically, I think, had the best moments of character growth and humanity for her is the one that just ultimately doesn't fucking matter.
Yes, and of course Space Boddicker. And then my number three was different from yours. Not to say that more that uh, Hope and Fear wasn't good, but Mortal Coil was my third favorite. That being the episode when uh, Space Snarf had a little run in with the potential lack of an afterlife. I am a sucker for the spiritual episode, and I also love it when Star Trek kind of puts a little bit of darkness out there and then doesn't rescue you from it. Like the end of that episode is Neelix attempting to kill himself because he thinks that his life has no purpose because he's interpreted his vision quest as to say that there is no Talaxian afterlife and there's that none of his relatives are there waiting for him, and this spiritual underpinning in which he's based his kind of hopes and dreams doesn't exist. And they don't tell you at the end, oh no, it's all totally true, and Neelix, has that moment of revelation that reaffirms his faith. No, Chakotay has to come in and basically explain to him like there's going to be unanswered questions the whole rest of your life, and you've got to make decisions about how you're going to live from this point forward, taking one step at a time. And it's such a great episode for not just Neelix but Chakotay as well. I think as a character, and I will always rate that one very highly because it leaves you a little unsteady at the end.
It is a miracle episode in that it takes so much of Voyager's trash baggage that we have shit on heavily and somehow scoops it all together into this
Yeah,
delicious meatloaf of leftovers that you would have never thought that these different elements from earlier seasons dragged together and brought to the forefront could somehow work. Again, like you pointed out, cult leader Chakotay being such an effective presence and so thoughtful and wonderful, like what the fuck. It's like I said, it's an amazing miracle.
it's like the only fucking time it's ever happened where his spiritual underpinnings aren't the absolute worst episode. In fact, there's another episode this season where that happened, where it's the reverse is true. But we'll get to that as we discuss our bottom three episodes. What are your picks, Peter?
I want to say that my congratulations to season 4 is that I had such a hard time picking these, not because there were so many, but because it was hard to go through and actually find 3 terrible episodes. And I'm looking at the wall of shame over here. Um, season 1, season 2 particular, I've got a ton of bad ones up there. The strength of season 4 is not that there, or I should say the weakness isn't that there's terrible episodes. Like I think almost every episode this season had something redeeming, or multiple things redeeming about it, and then just one thing that really soured it. It wasn't just like, with the exception of Concerning Flight, which is going to probably be my number one pick. There's not a lot of clunkers. And I went through the roster of episodes over and over again. I really scratched my head like, yeah, this had this had a stupid alien component, and this had Janeway acting really dumb, but there was always like some sort of redeeming feature to the second or third plot, B and C plots. So Concerning Flight, complete and utter garbage. I feel bad for John Rhys Davies. I hope he had a real fat ass paycheck. The introduction of, as you put it, cartoon Leonardo da Vinci, it was terrible. Her actions were insufferable.
Ekaterina, like, goddamn, he tried so fucking hard
He
in that
did.
ep. He tried so hard.
Effort was there. The script was not there.
Oh, it's
Uh,
awful. It was literally Kathy Janeway's cosplay fan fiction comes to life, and she decides to imperil the entirety of her crew to continue to have her fantasy fun time while dealing with Delta Quadrant space pirates who can't shoot for shit. Ah. Okay. Anyway, all right, I got it out of my
Number
system.
2 for me went to Scientific Method. That was the episode where um,
It was where
it
all
was a
the hidden scientists are like doing experiments to all the
space
crew.
Dr. Mengele's fucking
Yes.
with everybody.
Really? You felt that
It,
was worthy of being the second worst?
I listened to our episode again and I was reminded like how disgusted I was that it was such a ineffective retread of the old TNG episode Schisms. There were some okay parts in it, but ultimately it was just a boring episode that didn't bring anything new to the table. I really disliked it. And, was it the worst Voyager ever? No. And again, I think season 4, it's hard to find any of the absolute worst, but that it was just a sour shit episode. And the ending particularly was so fucking terrible. That was Janeway deciding to go play chicken with the aliens and fly through the binary star, and this really sloppy attempt to resolve the plot. I mean, she could have just used the self destruct, which she always uses and is well within her wheelhouse, but her little suicide maneuver there was just dumb, and I hated it. Uh,
I agree it's bad, but I don't think it was top three bad. But I understand. What's your third pick? What's your third pick?
Retrospect, which was such a bad, awkward episode that when we were divine interventioned by internet gods, that stopped our episode and lost the recording, we made the decision to just let bygones be bygones and not pick that turd back up.
I don't know how bad the episode truly was in a vacuum, but prior to the last few weeks, obviously giving us another giant news story that's dominated our lives. I can't think of anything else more difficult to try and record a podcast about than an episode of Star Trek Voyager where Seven of Nine gets possibly sexually assaulted, but not really. And it's just like no, 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 I
The take
refuse.
home the take home point in that whole episode for me too is the fact that Voyager picks fights and forces lethal conclusions that don't need to happen. And I wanted to rant again about that the guy she falsely accuses of molesting her or assaulting her, whatever, the stealing, or ironically accuses her of exactly what the third plot line of Picard is, and that's stealing Borg technologies from ex Borg. And him being like, no, I didn't do that. And him trying to escape, and Voyager be like, no, but come here, we want to talk about it. But we want to. He's like, no, no, no. And then finally forces a fight where he dies and everybody feels like shit. And it's like, yeah, Voyager, you force these situations. That was stupid. I want to give an honorable mention for one of the bottom three episodes here, and that would be the product of Kenneth Bewilder. Of course, I mean
The most
Random
bewildering
Thoughts.
episode ever. Oh man.
It is a bad episode in the premise, which I think we will go on to shit many times during this podcast about, because if you are a species of brittle ass empaths that can't take negative thoughts and you don't have like billboards everywhere saying leave your meanies at home or we're gonna lobotomize them, like how fucking stupid. um and then just the crazy twist into back alley choke daddy
Grinder
swingy
hookup,
heavy
yeah.
grinding with special guest star Event Horizon footage.
Yes.
Like
And that was after we had referenced Event Horizon like in a completely
numerous times.
independent fashion. Like it is as if 25 years in the past they could hear our conversation. But
If I had to watch on Random Thoughts by myself as an average Joe sitting at home binging Netflix, I would have been that would have been my bottom pick for sure. But because it was such a batshit crazy episode, it was so fun to talk about as a podcast. Like the podcast benefit there kept it off the list, and actually, you know, it's one of our better episodes I think to listen to. So it saved it from the bottom. What's your bottom of the barrels for this?
concerning flight is the consensus number one pick. It is the only like Elogium level bad episode of the season by far. Like, and it's still better than most of the other worst episodes from each prior season. So it has that going for it entirely on the charisma of John Rhys Davies, but it's still like the concept of it and execution of it is essentially wrong at every stage, and it is a deeply irritating thing to watch. Um,
It's fan fiction.
it it's not just it's fan fiction, and then it's this inexplicable desire on the part of a Starfleet captain to live out her own fan fiction at the expense of the actual people she's commanding. Like to the point where it almost becomes self-referential. Like in the episode, Tuvok like gets really frustrated with Janeway's like entertaining having, cartoon Leonardo da Vinci around, and like says, you know what, fuck it, okay, fine, fine, fine. I'm just gonna go back to the ship. Just please solve this fucking problem. I guess whatever. It's it's so dumb. Um,
I want to take a real quick sidebar here and talk about Janeway's portrayal. Something we've been especially critical of her writing, sometimes just being deplorable. I want to compliment the staff and I want to compliment Voyager as a series for making a character who perhaps unintentionally is so deeply flawed. Voyager was a very bold program to have such a female heavy cast and specifically a woman in the role of captain. They got a lot of flack for it. And it would have been very easy, I think, to make a Mary Sue always right captain who is just perfect in all ways. And instead, you have someone who is real and has flaws and makes many bad decisions and comes to odds with her crew. And I think that's a showing of respect from the writing room of making her seem real instead of just this two-dimensional, uh, literally a Mary Sue that, you know, just can do no wrong.
right, like we love TNG era JLP, but TNG era JLP is almost too perfect. To the point
He
where
hates children, Joe. Didn't you know he hates children?
and a character in the command role with a bit more realistic angles to them. And Cisco's the same way. When we potentially get a chance to watch DS9, yeah, I think you'll appreciate that this was also something that they looked forward with him. That, yeah, I agree, but I also think it's not entirely um, self-aware on their part. I think a
No.
lot of the problems that we're seeing are ones that they just kind of like fell ass backwards into,
It's bad. It's unintentional bad writing.
and speaking of unintentional bad writing, my second worst episode was Waking Moments, which was the Chuck Ote, the Dream Warrior episode where only because he has special Native American Dream Warrior powers, I'm not fucking kidding you, can they escape the pull of a bunch of psychic space vampires who live on a planet where everyone's just asleep all the time.
Yet they all have nice department store clothes.
Yes, and
And a
just
magic thought device that compounds their. That could have been a great episode. And we said it in the podcast for Waking Moments, and I'll say it again now. There was a backstory there that this was a used and abused alien race of telepaths that had been enslaved and used for nefarious purposes, and now they're so afraid of outsiders that after they overthrew their masters and took the technology from them, they've become these psychic predators. That would have been great. You don't get any of that. It's just ugly dudes sleeping in a cave, and
yep,
what's the end point of all this other than finding out that the EMH is willing to commit genocide and nuke an alien race from orbit?
yep. He certainly was ready to fire all the torpedoes and just blow the place up. Never mind, you could have just sent him down instead. But that's yes, whatever. I'm not gonna relive that. My last on
Wait,
the
before we jump off of that too, I want to also give a shout out to that episode in particular. What was the other fucking infuriating part about that? I lost it. I'm sorry. Continue.
you know what you also lost is your footfalls in the forest when we reviewed Nemesis. Um, that was the episode where Chakotay, yet again, is placed on the Catch and Jungle Fighters planet, where they all speak in weird metaphors, and suddenly he forgot that he spent, a portion of his adult life as a terrorist while hanging out with a bunch of jungle fighters, and it's. I found the method of their speech not nearly as annoying as you, but in looking back at that episode, it was definitely bad, and it was bad because they botched Chakotay's characterization essentially incorrectly the entire time. Like it, nothing that they set him up for made any sense. Like he should have been on that planet as, nah, I get you. I understand. I used to do the same thing. I saw the error of my ways. Maybe I'll try to convince you that you need to find other ways because, I'm trying to reconnect with my Starfleetness now and been, serving as the XO of the ship for a while. That was the mode to be in. Instead, he's just this total pacifist who doesn't understand terrorism, which I why did you write it this way? Why did this happen? I don't get it.
My other infuriating moment on Scientific Method was the fact that the whole crew couldn't understand shared consciousness, and we had to explain it on two separate scenes to each other. That was fucking infuriating and a massive waste of time. I'm amazed that you just put Nemesis up on the board as one of your bottom three. You defended that episode
I did.
very tightly.
I did.
I hated the way they talked. I'm still split down the middle on the episode, and for that, I called it a neutral. Like, part of it was infuriating and terrible, and then some of it was like really good sci-fi. Had some of the best plot fake outs we've had, and once we get past the halfway point and like Maquis Chakotay surfaces, I thought that there was a good engaging story there that I did not see the ending, what should have been the ending coming at the end, when like they drag Chakotay in front of the alien dude and like, oh, here's the prime minister, and Chakotay's like, fuck this guy, I'm still all fucked up from these LC or LSD experiments. Like, that
I,
was silly, but
I see the chat. Checo's sway, co-opte. Yeah, it's
that's me. And that's, yeah, of course, co-opte.
yeah.
It is what he's doing in that episode really so far outside of his character, or has his character again really affirmed the co-opte status that if you pitch him a good enough sob story, current status be damned, he will back whatever cause you have with no prejudice. Yeah, again, I'm surprised. I was very surprised to see Nemesis on your bottom three.
What is not a well, no, okay. There's another category here. Biggest botch episode. So I take it that this is episode that had the most potential and then kicked itself in the dick so hard it wound up being bad type of
The
situation.
quintessential Voyager episode. Voyager is a
That's true.
television
That is
show
yes.
about wasted potential.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Day of Honor is fucking terrible. I almost put that as one of my bottom three. You got so much. You got a warp core ejection. You've got a race ravaged by the Borg. You've got a warp core um, hostage situation. The amazing two part story you could have told about this, and I'm sure there's other elements out there that aren't springing out to me right now. And instead, you squander all of it and turn it into this. And there's really good Balana. Even though it's a terrible episode about Balana, there's really good Balana growth. That's one that really opened my eyes up and says, Balana's just like wants to be this nerd, and she has this warrior expectation thrust on her just because of the way she was born. Like you talked before about your wife's identification with Balana Torres because coming from a multiracial home and this and that. And I thought like this, and not as much about race, but about like this is the
Culture. Yeah.
bookworm I want to be, and this is the expectation of what I'm supposed to be in this culture. So many excellent pieces and components to that episode, and just somehow they bring it all together in the worst way possible. And how can you have a fucking episode about jettisoning the warp core be so goddamn boring? And the answer to that is Tom Paris Balana up close romance.
Yeah, for the last 15 minutes. Like you set all this up and instead of paying off the space conundrum that you've built around this, instead it's focused on this interpersonal relationship. Not to mention, I mean, it's like 80% cold when it comes to Tom Bolano stuff. Like we're not fans of it. We don't think that plays well. We think the actors struggle to find chemistry, struggle to find kind of like good moments to get this relationship working on screen, and then it's just episodes dominated by it. And when it wasn't working, it wasn't working. I agree. The episode's pretty bad
Even the
overall.
chicken people is some of the best Starfleet prosthetics you've ever
Yeah,
that
great
you've
alien.
seen.
Some of the
Where
best alien makeup we've seen. Period.
just they shit the bed with gold. I don't get how you do it. Whatever.
I did not select. I didn't have consider until now a biggest botch. I think that though, if I had to give it in truth, I would give it to Year of Hell because the botch is how much got put on the table to be used in that show moving forward that they just didn't. And instead, it's a great Star Trek two-parter that means nothing ultimately. Like good moments, great visual effects, some great like ship destruction, slow decay, all kinds of cool stuff happened in that episode, and none of it matters because in the
It's
end
the
they should.
Q episode that we should have had and never got. Had Q popped in last minute and said, "See, this is why humanity has potential. This is why this ship is special. I'm going to give you a gift. Everybody's going to remember what happened here, and I'm going to reset the clock." That fixes
That or
all the
like
complaints of
the temporal inversion or whatever. Like they could have built some even a little bit of technobabble as to why all of them, because of their proximity to what happened for that long, for that year, they remember it or whatever. Like they could have found a way. It doesn't necessarily even have to be Q, although the Q idea would work. They needed to do something so that that episode mattered the rest of the run of the show, and I think that would have been so cool. And instead, it just didn't. And it was just this cool two-parter with Space Boddicker, and it was neat, but that's all it was. Um, we have a lot of nominees for our world famous TM pending weakest shit award. I've got, I thought like, oh, I've got 3 or 4 here. That's good, and then I saw you've got like 9. Um,
couldn't help
let's
myself.
let's explain to our viewers what is the origin of the weakest shit award, Peter. Why don't you tell that tale?
Well, was that the Jetral
It
origin? That
was
was season one. Weakest shit is something that Voyager does that is so fucking infuriating that it just leaves an unforgettable taint. It goes so against genre, it defies the universe or expectations or character development Bible, whatever you want to call it, that it's amazing. And I've got so many entries on this because like I said, we don't have bad episodes per se in season 4. You have bad elements that are are cancerous in an episode. There's plenty of good in any of these episodes for the most part, but just one pervasive thought that really just gets you between the ribs and hits you in the heart.
I see a number that just feel like you're just gonna go off into orbit as you mentioned them. So what, Peter? What's your number one? What's your number one nominee for weakest shit?
Oh, the one that I'm gonna have to say is the worst.
Yeah.
Sparing Seven of Nine's life in Scorpion 2. It is unprecedented what a fucking stupid idea this is.
Yeah.
There has never ever, with the exception of Jean-Luc Picard, been an effort by Starfleet to resuscitate a Borg. Hugh was brought in and being developed as a weapon, and he developed, or he, came out of the Borg haze on his own, and as a consequence, they viewed him as an individual again, and he got his freedom that way. But for Voyager to go out of its way after jettisoning an entire complement of Borg's whatever attackers at that point, and deciding, hey, here's this one that we're gonna turn into our pet and try and turn into a real girl against all common sense, is just, it makes the entire season fall apart, really.
The rationale as to why they did was extremely underdeveloped. I completely agree. It didn't seem like it was necessary for what their plan was to spare Seven of Nine. And there was never an explanation or moment in the script where something about Seven of Nine was worth saving, whereas all of the other drones weren't. And I can't think we can emphasize that enough. Voyager, like, definitely murders the shit out of a couple dozen drones, specifically by like flushing out the airlock or whatever like Chakotay does, or
Brutal.
and
Very, very telltale Shiar of him.
yes, and it's so it is not like they weren't disposing of these guys left and right. It just so happened that obviously Seven of Nine was the spokesperson for the collective and was the face woman, but aside from that, was in no way special that they indicated to anybody. And there is an inexplicable decision just to sever her from the collective and make her the pet drone of the ship that they never actually provide an explanation for. So I agree, it's weak shit, but I don't think it's the weakest shit of the season by a long stretch. I think there are far more inexplicable moments. And to me, you already highlighted it, was one you picked out that I didn't think of until I saw it, but I see it now. Year of Hell is a direct reference to a season 3 Voyager episode where Cass time travels through her own life. And there's a whole segment of her life regarding the Kremen and their Chronoton weapons and a period called the Year of Hell that she experiences as part of that episode. And it is noted at the end that she remembers all of it and that she, in fact, was going to write a report detailing everything that she knew for Voyager's use for the possibility that they would someday encounter the Kremen and this whole situation with this Chronoton weaponry that got B'Elanna and Janeway killed in that episode, in that timeline. And somehow, some way, they go back to that idea, they decide to do that episode, and nobody mentions on screen or even implies the existence of Kess's report that was explicitly created in the season prior.
Yeah,
What
I mean,
the
this
fuck?
is going back and listening to the our episode on that. Like, I fucking lost it, and maybe that should be my weakest shit. It's on my list of grievances here, but uh, everything about Year of Hell is built in, was it Time and Again?
Yes.
It's a direct. There's even one for one shots. Like, it's just unfathomable, and it unravels the entire
Yeah,
series of
they
events.
even
Like,
have the Chronoton torpedo thing, but instead of Cass, it's Seven of Nine. Like they recreate parts of that episode in
the
Year of
writer
Hell.
sat and watched the episode time and again before they wrote it. It's just inexcusably bad. Yeah, I guess that's really the weakest shit in this. Um, what else you got for your weakest shit nominees?
Uh, you know how at the end of Demon they just decide to let the metal planet clone the entire crew and then fuck off without a single line of dialogue after? That makes no sense to me. You're talking about a Federation starship with a duty towards the Prime Directive and First Contact and new life, new civilizations, and you're in this situation where you're essentially have accidentally created new life. You have all of this responsibility as a consequence of being responsible for creating this new life, and wants to expand and evolve and clone you, and you have zero discussion at the end of the episode about, do we do this? Does everyone agree? Why? Is this a good idea? What are the potential consequences? Not just not enough discussion, not just underdeveloped rationale. It's that it goes completely unremarked on. The episode ends with get everyone to the cargo bay, then a wide shot, effect shot of all of the metal people having cloned everyone on the ship while the ship flies away with no dialogue. What? What?
It's so crazy and cheeky and fun that I can't be mad.
I mean, I
It's
guess
just so
I wasn't as mad at the time because we had those two dulcet tone having Australians whispering in our ears and sharing mind bending details about the episode.
I know there's going to be a follow-up episode to it, so I can't be that mad. I also want to give a big shout out for the weakest shit award to the end of Vis-a-Vis, and that is the one where Tom Paris gets tired with his life, and there's that body jumper who seduces him, kind of, and then takes his body and flies off. And in the background of this entire, and I really liked Vis-a-Vis, but in the background of this entire episode is there's this fantastic super warp drive technology, and that is how the bad guy escapes and goes off, and they got to come back and find blah 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 blah. This mega warp drive, which is like right up there with transport, basically, is installed in one of the shuttlecraft. Tom helps this guy repair this thing. Everybody's had a lot of access to this fucking mega warp drive, and they still have possession of all this knowledge and technology at the end of the episode. And that's it. Never gets talked about again. It just gets put in the fucking closet with that George Foreman grill that nobody uses anymore. And that's all she wrote. Stupid. And I think I lost your audio, Joe. Mic check, mic check. Joe, can you unmute your Hangouts? Like, hello? I can hear you now, Joe. I think talk. No, I can't hear you.
I tried to plug it in, plug it back in. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're in double turn off Hangouts.
Gotcha.
All right, can people at home hear us?
Yes. All right, we're back. Sorry, guys. I literally had to unplug it and plug it back in.
Why don't you get a video close up of that headset you're using while your real mic is broken so we can see the worst fucking headset of all time?
Here it is, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Real
I
call center stuff going on there.
I I couldn't just go to Best Buy. I think the cable's bad in my usual mic. My I have the I have a standard ice blue ice mic, and sadly for me, it just stopped connecting correctly to my computer. It kind of fades in and out.
Yeah,
And so,
let's get back on track before we lose you for good here.
all right, okay.
Anything else
So,
shit you want to bring up?
uh, you mentioned on this list the removal of Kess. I don't think that was weak shit necessarily. I think that episode was actually super solid.
I don't mean the episode. I mean the concept of taking the best fucking character in the series and writing her off for because we need titties and we don't want two blondes.
Can't argue with that. Um, let's diverge from the awards for a second. Let's talk about that because that was obviously through line on our discussion through the entire season was the juvenile way in which they attempted to get more viewers onto the show was we need to have sex appeal, which I'm not saying that Star Trek didn't ever use sex appeal to try and entice viewers. Original 60s Star Trek had them short skirts. You certainly had Troy in flattering outfits throughout most of TNG's run. It's a thing. I'm not. It's fine. I mean, it's part of appealing to a mass audience is using a little bit of sex appeal to your advantage, but it never felt quite so brazen until fucking Seven of Nine in skin tight bodysuits with huge tracts of lands, shooting her wide on purpose just so you can see as much of it as possible as often as possible. And it's such a loss because Seven of Nine's an interesting character. Jerry Ryan's a good actress, and it just feels like it was all super devalued as a consequence of we're doing this because this is how we think we're going to get more eyeballs on this show. Don't get it. And it goes to show that even 25 years ago, you had people in production that didn't understand what made Star Trek good. We're gonna bitch about this later when we talk about Picard, right? About why the fuck are the people who are making Star Trek not understand what makes it good? I guess the difference between now and then is that you still had a lot of people who were there just a few years prior making TNG, who are making DS9, who did get it. And so, UPN is like breathing down their neck, hey, you're our flagship show. We need just show to be successful. Get some titties in there, and they're like, okay, well, we'll do that, but we're going to build a whole story around this. And we're going to make it as interesting as possible.
And then we're going to tell the same story 15 times.
That's the weakest shit right there.
Kess being removed is the weakest shit to me because they got rid of her right when it got good. Right when Voyager realized its own vision and manifested its promise, they abandoned it. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to stick my guns on it. Voyager was very far ahead of its time. Looking at Voyager now with 2020 vision, seeing Janeway, seeing the diverse crew they have that doesn't feel forced, seeing the stories that they tell, it feels very natural. It feels very good to me to watch. I can't say what it would have been like to watch it as a 37-year-old back in '98, but it's great. It's progressive. It's super good, and to throw all the hard work they put into making it all of that without titties in a cat suit was very defeating. So
And
that's what.
you mention it here in your notes, but I'll spoil it. Did a show ever pass the Bechdel test better than Voyager? I mean, like as far as having women having dialogue where they're not discussing men, right? Like it
No,
beats the
the
Bechdel
Kess
test before it was invented.
the Kess goodbye episode, the gift specifically. I mean, you've got so much strong female plot going on in there. No talk of guys anywhere. It's and I do think that there's plenty of room in the episode in the series for Seven of Nine and Kess. Um,
Yeah, getting rid of her was not necessary.
let's go ahead and jump to the worst character category here because it's going to play into that directly. And I'm going to tell you right now, my worst character for this season is Harry Kim. Harry Kim was originally supposed to be
What?
written off the show. For some reason, they decided to swap it out for Kess, and it had something to do with Jerry Taylor and the guy who played Vorik. I don't. That's all fucking rumor. But Harry Kim has some very strong entries and moments towards the later half of season 4, but for the vast majority of season 4, he's just completely fucking worthless. They don't know what to do with him. It's not hate against Garrett Wang. It's just the writers did not know where to put him, and he's basically a fucking light switch on the wall for all intents and purposes in the majority of season 4.
I do think that his strong appearances in the latter third of the season kind of balance it out. I wouldn't call him the worst. I think the worst character was Seven of Nine, and that is by no fault of the character itself or its actress. Like, it just was so tiring to deal with having them tell the same story over and over and over again that I got really tired of it. You got really tired of it. By the time we were reviewing, the last seven becomes a real girl episode, we were just exhausted. And that wore on me a lot more than them not necessarily knowing exactly what to do with 709. Like, he was barely in the show for the first half of the season. I don't think it doesn't make him the worst. I think by default, I think you could make a better case for Tom because like his one highlight episode, he's just kind of a real fucking just bitch
Tom's a
the entire.
bitch all season 4, and I say that somewhere later on the list that he's a miserable cunt a majority of this season. But Harry is just. I mean, go back and listen to the season 4 episodes again. We shit on him nonstop for how worthless and tacked on he feels. I want to do two special highlights of his low points in this. One is the complete writing botch of him being totally ignorant to his experiences with 8472 during the Hirogen plotline when the 8472, the Space Mewtwo, gets on. He's crawling through the fucking Jeffries tube and finds evidence that they're there, and just zero recollection that he was supposed to die
from
with
from
alien snot all over his face,
Yeah.
and they saved him because he's one of the most beautiful people according to Time magazine. Fucking terrible. That was an excellent opportunity for character growth. None. And then the second was three also, him trying to like not force himself, but like trying to hook up with Seven, and then when she's like in another weak as shit entry, take off your clothes now, this is my terrible two-dimensional sexy time moment, and then his ball shrinking, him running away out of there, and then finally him willfully and thinking it's all giggles and fun getting into hypersleep in the space travel through the theta radiation cloud, again completely ignorant of the thaw when he was tortured at length by the space juggalo Chuck McGill.
Well, I mean, his brain was going to be plugged into a computer that time. I mean, there's a qualitative difference there.
Bullshit. Weakness. It's terrible.
Listen, that he was had some strong big dick energy when it came to the Hirogen having taken over the ship, and then he has to like figure out a way to like MacGyver the space breakout. He's like he's
Garrett Wang cites that as a terrible episode for himself out of his own ignorance, not realizing that that was the fucking the best scene of that two-part series. I think was him playing that card and giving him out of trouble. Um, Oh,
because
and the other strong entry for him too was
well, Demon, he's like, yo, I've done all this, I've
yes,
died, I've been in the Delta Quadrant for 3 years. I'm gonna start asserting myself. Um, you know,
excellent moment.
it was a good moment. I think that he was not the worst. I can definitely like I don't I understand if he's not the best, but I think you can make a much better case for either Tom or Seven of Nine being the worst. I also would not say it was Janeway, and we've I think twice given her the worst character award.
Yeah, well
Uh,
deserved.
yeah, this season was not her. She was somewhere in the middle, which it's unfortunate for the captain, but
Let's lighten it up, Joe. What was your best console explosion?
I feel like you just have to look at Year of Hell and say, man, all of the consoles exploded. You had all this gnarly like self implosion of the ship. You had whole pieces of the hull missing. Like there's no episode of Star Trek Voyager that is ever going to surpass Year of Hell for console explosion related effects, just bar none.
And they went the distance on that too. You'll always
They
get like
did.
a puff of smoke and some sparks. It's rare you see like broken glass and like real damage to the set.
Real damage
That's
to the
good.
set, and then like real damage to the model too. Well, I was CG, but like they showed like where the whole deck got blown out, and, like all the
Yeah, that
fucking
was really
bulkheads
cool.
are fucked up. Like it was all cool.
I gave my vote to Living Witness when there's that fist fight in the briefing room, and then Janeway takes her phaser and blows up the computer.
Yeah, evil villain style. That was good. That was good.
Every time it's not often you see a console exploding as a direct result of a Starfleet member shooting it with a gun intentionally. That's one for the ages there. Uh,
Speaking of lighter awards, best choking scene. We had some real contenders this season for
Season 4 is a season of choking, man.
hey, Lisa Kink is on the case. You
Oh,
can she's all over. We've got three solid options here. Option one, I would be Tom giving the choky choke to Janeway and vis-a-vis. We've got 7 of 9 putting the choke slam on Neelix and Raven. Not just a choke slam with potential Borg like assimilation tubes in the mix. And then of course Tuvok having a choke circle jerk with all of the with his grinder hookup in on the telepath planet. Um, I think that the 7 of 9 choke slam is probably qualitatively the single best choke. But I think it's hard to beat the baffling majesty that is Tuvok getting into mutual, sensual, highly charged choke daddy moments in some sweaty back alley on a telepath's planet.
the Tuvok one was epic, and I really did enjoy Tom throttling Janeway as the door opened because I was not expecting to see that at all. However, 7 of 9 strangling Neelix after that excruciatingly slow scene of him teaching her how to eat food, and here comes the shuttle, open the shuttle bay, like, was so gratifying to see him punished for wasting my fucking time with that I'm gonna go with the 7 choke slamming Neelix as my best choking scene for season 4.
I'm glad we could
Three
agree.
three strong showings across the board though, and there's probably more we forgot about. It was just chock full of choking.
Someone asked on the trauma support group best prison break. I think there's only one real answer. Whatever you have to say about the episode, the killing game featured the entire crew in the same episode escaping a mind prison and then an actual imprisonment by holographic Nazis on the holodeck. The holodeck itself representing a prison-like atmosphere because they are trapped in the simulation, and then the ship itself as their prison because the Hirogen control it. That is a quadruple prison break
Yo, dog,
in
we
one
heard you like
episode.
prison breaks.
So we're gonna have a prison break in your prison break while you're prison breaking with your prison break. That's got to be it. I mean, that may be an all timer as far as prison breaks go.
It's epic, but if you're going to talk about prison breaks, there's only one person that can be the chief focus of that, and that is Tom Bad Boy Paris,
Yeah, Tom Gilbert
uh,
Paris, absolutely.
convict extraordinaire, and his prison break moment of the season was in one when he escaped from a hypersleep chamber, not one, but 4 separate occasions of waking himself up, getting out of this fucking tube. And not only did he escape hypersleep, he also escaped any sort of demonstrable damage or harm as he crawled around in the theta radiation filled void of whatever that goddamn nebula was. Uh, and just came out without a fucking scratch. Kudos to you, the true Houdini of prison.
So, best alien race. It's not on here. So this is one right off the top. Best guest star alien race. We had a lot of one-shot aliens. What was the best one in your
Where's
opinion?
that one in?
It's not on the
I thought
list.
I had. I swear to God, I had that. And I had a good one. Who the fuck was it I picked? Because I'm gonna pick the wrong person now, and it's gonna fucking infuriate me, Joe.
now you don't have it on here.
I
I'm
swear to God, I wrote it down somewhere. What was your favorite?
you have best guest star, which is not
Oh, we'll
hard.
get to that. Don't you worry about that.
Um,
Oh,
so
I know it goddamn well who it is. I went to do it, and then my child threw up on me. The best alien race, and you can write this in a fucking book right now, without a doubt, was none other than the Cleveland
yes,
Bromar.
yes. Oh, I was so open. Oh, yeah.
Joe, you got too loud and you just ruined your mic. So while you reconnect your headset. All right, while he's
Yeah,
fucking around with that.
I,
Oh, there he is.
I'm back. I'm back.
The Cleveland Bromar is so good that they not only get a rise out of Janeway, they've driven you to destroying your own property. These Cardassian proto clowns, such shitty, bitchy, cunty fucks, and I loved it.
They're so
And
petty.
all of their threats, all of their vicious jabs are all just completely founded by the ship of death cruising into their space with their pet Borg that gets loose and just goes roughshod and proves all of their crazy accusations true.
And they're also like powerless to follow up on any of their threats. Like Voyager like just runs hot dick over all of their ships and is like just plucks 7 of 9, be like, all right, we got our rogue drone back. Well, we don't really care if you care or not because you guys are pushovers. See ya.
Because one of our Type 6 shuttlecrafts can bring like your best warships to its knees, so
Yeah.
fuck you.
So they're
Uh,
cunty assholes with zero, and I mean zero ability to back it up, which is very unique in Voyager.
What's that, Cleveland Bromar? You don't want us coming in your territory? Well, we're gonna do whatever you want. What's that, Janeway? We can't pick and choose what law we will respect and won't. Not in this episode. Another infuriating weakest moment nominee for us.
We're nearing the hour limit, so I wanted to maybe um, wrap up our discussion of our awards. I think there's one more we need to give, which is season MVP,
And I
and
want to do best guest star.
and then best guest star. We'll do both of those, and then I think we want to get into like some general talk about Voyager, like season 4 overall, going into season 5, some of the changes that are going to happen in season 5. Some of which we've already discussed and will be in our next regular episode because we have actually already reviewed Night, and then finally we will conclude talking about Picard. So, uh, season MVP. I see your choice here is Charles Otay. Is that true?
AKA Co-opte, AKA Chuck Nasty. I think I gave him MVP season 3 too. I don't remember who he did for season 4. Um,
This is
in
season 4.
season, I'm sorry, season 3. Um, season 4 especially, he has established himself as a credible leader. He's got a couple weak entries into this killing game coming to the top of the list, but throughout the entire season, I feel that Chakotay really has become the mouthpiece of the viewer. He calls Janeway on a ton of shit, up to the point where he just openly contradicts her best wishes, like when he throws Janeway's fucking stupid Borg alliance in the trash. His cult leadership status comes into play a couple times, and just there's so many wild, silly decisions that get made repeatedly in Voyager, and him being aware that these are bad ideas and voicing it. Um, I feel like once again he's come through strong.
I felt like the season MVP was the Doctor. Um, if you can put Robert Picardo in an episode with Andy Dick and it's still good, I mean, that
Andy
is some
Dick, another weak as shit moment.
that is some strong acting ability. And besides, he did he did send us his regards personally, for our
I am
100th episode.
susceptible to bribing, so you do have a
Yeah.
very strong point.
So I'm gonna go with the EMH Robert Picardo. You are our strongest MVP for season 4, as far as I'm
I
concerned.
want to give a season 4 runner-up, Bolana Torres. Bolana continues to establish herself as an interesting character I want to know more about, and I think if she wasn't burdened with the Tom Paris relationship, she would have come out a lot stronger in this season. I'll be very curious to see what they do with her later on. And again, I think her status is coming out as a nerd girl um, has done her a lot of favors in my book.
The best guest star. I feel like there's only two possible things you can select as far as like notable guest stars for the whole season, and unfortunately, one of them is John Rhys Davies. So I mean, there's really only one option here. And who would it be?
I think there's two strong options, and I
Wow.
think I was going to call this best guest star should have been best RoboCop alumni. And Joe, I want to point out to you right now my T-shirt here. This is my
You're
OCP. That's Omni Consumer Products. Those are the guys that brought you RoboCop, and that would be Ray Wise, who did a terrific job in Hopes and Fears. But my MVP is going to Kurtwood Spitz for his character out of Year of Hell. He dances circles around everyone that he touches. And as I was listening to our episode, he outacts everybody to such a degree that my wife was even like, why isn't this guy just a regular dude on the show? Like, why can't, like, Kurtwood Smith does TV, why couldn't he just be in Voyager? He is so much better than everybody else. And it is the best reason to just say he's the best. Time travel is such a weak point in Voyager, and the goofy techno babble and lack of reasoning. He doesn't really provide any good scientific reasons to what's going on, but he reads off the techno babble so well that in an extremely rare showing, I just don't give a fuck.
Right.
He could have told me that magic unicorns shitting rainbows are what push the sun into the sky every morning, and I would have just believed it because he says it with such conviction and clarity that, yeah, of course the fucking unicorn shit the sun into the sky, like, duh.
Yeah, his whole character in that episode, I guess it's worth pointing out, he's not in the two-parter that much. As far as like screen time is concerned, he's almost, I don't want to say an unseen villain, but he's a rarely seen villain. You really get most of his dialogue in essentially two scenes with Chakotay, where he's like really like laying out his motivations, and like they have the dinner of all of the stuff of a bunch of civilizations that don't exist anymore and stuff like that.
So good.
And the for a limited amount of screen time, he just affects a huge presence on that episode. I completely agree he's the best guest star of the season. And could you imagine a Star Trek show where Kurtwood Smith plays the captain? What? How fucking awesome would that be?
I want
Space
a show where
Captain Space Boddicker? Come on.
I want a show where Kurtwood Smith plays Neelix, where somehow Neelix becomes the driving force. And not knocking the guy that actually plays Neelix, but I think
Yeah,
Kurtwood Smith could really fucking.
who's had, I think, some great episodes. This season, one last season. So yeah, I've warmed up to Snarf Snarf. I really maybe overlooked
I
him
love
for.
him.
Yeah.
I love all of these characters at this point, man. I'm bought in. I care about these guys. They all mean something significant to me, and it's again, in light of Picard and some of this other fucking trash that we've watched. Like, it's nice to see what's, again, all new to me, to have this wonderful experience watching these guys in some warm fuzzy 90s Trek, in the Trek drought that we're currently in.
Speak.
Before we move completely out of the awards, I'd also want to give one shout out to another weak as shit entry that still infuriates me. Worst day or whatever, Balana's bad day at work. The fucking captain sending two people in a shuttlecraft to reclaim the most important piece of technology in a starship trying to get home, the warp core. So fucking terrible. I had to say it. I had to say it again. So fucking stupid, weak as shit. Second place in my book.
Let's let's pivot for a second and go ahead and talk about Picard, since you've kind of invoked it, and we'll finish by talking
I'm
about
sorry, I didn't mean
Voyager.
to do that. Can we just put it back in the fucking
you
closet with the gimp?
you and I both watched the whole series. Uh, we
Regretfully, yes.
we both raged pretty hard, I would say, on the trauma support group as each episode came out. As beyond, we stopped reviewing it because it wasn't fun anymore, right? Like we were just
We
angry.
hated it so much it cost us listeners, and I mean
Yeah,
that's everything I need to say about it.
yeah, like it's straight.
That's
We
such
we're
an ugly side to us it brought out.
and so we, I think, wisely reflected after we got some feedback of like the show used to be cool and now it's not, where we're like, oh, you know what, no, okay, this is probably bad for us to do. Let's bail. Well, we finished watching it, and the same problems we talked about in the first 7 episodes existed, except in even greater intensity and greater quantity in the last three. Fair to say. So you know what was bad about it?
Let's talk about what was good about it, because I think there was some really great potential. What's bad about it was the hope it gave me that it would be good. The
Yeah, what
first
was the first episode like? Just the all of that potential, was that the bad part of like?
the tapestry was there to tell a really good story and rope me in and make me care, and then it fucking kicked me right in the dick instead. The last episode we reviewed, which I don't remember what the goddamn name of it was, and
The
I don't
Impossible
remember.
Box?
Not a bad episode. I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it. I would say it was the second best episode of the series, and everything from there was trash. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds and bitchy neckbeardy and bitch about specific
No,
characters, but I
not
do want
worth
to
it.
say, broadly speaking, two huge misses here. Okay, first of all, I don't know what their goal was. I think they wanted something very political, very thoughtful, blah blah blah. I don't think you got any of that, and I think it's easy to say. I think it's fair to say, looking at Picard, that this is an action series first. Do you agree?
I don't think they knew what they wanted to do. I think that perhaps some of the story that came out afterwards about how the troubled nature of the production, how the budget got cut, seemed to really reflected on what they were able to kind of put out as far as the product is concerned. I mean, the whole final episode, space battle, doesn't actually happen, and I think it doesn't happen because they didn't have the money to do it. And so I don't know necessarily if they knew what they were trying to
Well,
produce.
I think you can look at each episode containing some spectacular fight scene or another, and some of them, especially in the beginning, were really fucking good fights. The Tal Shiar operatives beating the hell out of the Tal Shiar at Chateau Picard, and some of the Dodge fight sequences really good. This is an action TV show, right? And you have two huge action misses that should have been fucking sweet. If you're gonna show me a Borg cube full of dormant Borg and Romulan Centurions with guns, and there's fights all over the place. Like, the ending of this show should have been the Borg waking up and shit hitting the fan, and 2 episodes of survival horror on this Borg cube as they fight their way out in whatever plot they're in. Instead, it's a 5-minute sequence where the Borg go uh, rogue under Seven of Nines, now Borg Queen status. They blow them out into space, and it's just such a fucking squander what should have been fucking awesome action TV. And then the second big miss was, like you said, at the end, when it's the big face off between Romulan and Starfleet, and just a stupid number of starships show up. There's like something like 200 or 300 fucking Federation ships. And if nothing else, Star Trek should be a TV show about cool starships looking cool. And instead, it is the cheapest shit scene where you've got
It's
the
literally a
same
CG cutout over and over and
copy
over.
paste
Yeah.
paste 300 times. It's the same fucking ship looking sloppy, looking stupid. It's worse than the end of Rise of Skywalker, when all the star destroyers just rise up out of nowhere. In just, man, how are you going to be a Star Trek and just have a bad fucking end space sequence like that? And then finally, my kind of thoughts on all this is, you get jammed with all these terrible goddamn characters you just don't care about. I didn't care about, with their stupid stories I didn't care about, and these terrible flaws. Yet in the beginning, you had these two super good characters that are some of the best Trek characters I've ever seen. The two Tel Shiar roommates that Picard has, that you establish and do a great job with, and then just never fucking touch again.
It I've never watched a show that felt so slow yet so rushed at the same time. Like, first 3 episodes didn't really seem to matter for the lot to the last 7. The they never they seemed very confused about what kind of story they were trying to tell, like, where is this plot going? It smacked of rewrites. It smacked of reshoots. That entire episode with Riker and Troy was a
The
reshoot.
Desperate episode,
That was a reshoot. They made that episode after they had done their primary production, and came back and did that one on the cheap. And you can tell because they realized they needed to do more with, like, having TNG people in it. They never figured out what kind of story they were trying to tell, except maybe that they were ripping off of Mass Effect 3, of course. And uh, as a consequence, the whole story suffered. I'm not even going to get into, I think, the overall horrific weaknesses and performances. I do think that Patrick Stewart was too old to play Pat. Either he never understood Jean-Luc Picard really, or he's just a little too old to convey the command presence of Jean-Luc Picard, which is certainly possible. Man's in his late
he
70s.
portrayed. Listen, man, he's executive producer. He portrayed the character he wanted to, and I'll go back to what we said before. And it's,
Yeah.
you
Don't be
should not be your
your
own
own
director.
storyteller. Yeah.
You shouldn't be your own storyteller. And the way he envisioned Picard is, I think, the complete opposite of what Picard was in TNG. And again, I mean, if you were out there and you enjoyed Picard, I'm glad you had an enjoyable experience. And I'm sorry if our sour opinions didn't sit well with you. But it was a very hard show for me to sit there and watch a quote unquote continuation of Next Gen, and find myself actively looking forward to Picard finally dying
And then being
probably
disappointed when he
says
doesn't.
something to me about me as a person. But I was just like, please let this be over. The 10 episode promise on this, and then of course it's and our voyages will continue because now I'm in a android body who's for all intents a human. And I could go on about like, well, is this really Picard? And where's the struggle on him to, oh God, what am I at my core now? I'm just a fucking robot and echoes of another man's memories. But really, when you're in the 24th century, every time you transport, we joke about it, just kills you anyways and remakes you with someone else's memories. So I guess in that respects, getting transplanted in a robot body, like soul schmo, who gives a fuck? But
I I think that
Raffi knowing the entire plot.
yes, the episode where Raffi just magically gets to understand every single plot element, including ones
She
she had
knows
no
that
reason to
Commodore
know.
O is a Romulan plot or plant, and just all this other crazy shit. Like, how could it, where did the jump to conclusion, Matt, come out here? And it's just rushed and it's bad
Let
scripting. And I don't
let's
want to
pull it
justify.
let's pull it back. We're doing the thing we said we wouldn't do, and
Okay,
it's
I'm
getting
sorry.
neckbeardy.
So,
I
yeah,
meta wise for Trek, I got one other question to ask when it comes to Picard. Does does Star Trek have a future, or is it really just a relic of the past now? Because
I
this was
think that the lower decks episodes that are going to be coming out, and like you said, because it's flying under the radar of management for now, I think the first season is going to be terrific. And I'll say it again: the Orville. If you want good
yeah.
Trek, it's there. It's in a different uniform, but the spirit is alive. And I think that if we're lucky, Kurtzman will lose the reins, and somehow Seth MacFarlane will end up with an actual, true Star Trek property and
I don't
something good will come
necessarily
of it.
even want it to be Seth MacFarlane, but what Star Trek desperately needs is a Mandalorian moment of different creative people getting the opportunity to do something away from the current creative direction and demonstrating that the property has value as long as you have good creatives in charge of it. Like Star Wars was just kind of bankrupted itself at warp speed and just didn't have direction, didn't have a plan, movies were bad, and then what happened? Guys with an idea, guys with good creative vision made a television show,
Fans of the property.
yeah, and just killed it, right? Just knocked it out of the park. Nothing too complicated, just right. And that potential still exists for Star Trek. It just needs to be that somebody that is a fan of the property and has creative vision and has the ability to pull it off gets their chance to make their Mandalorian. And that could still
Tell a
happen.
small story, and this is the thrust of the Mandalorian: is tell a strong story, tell a small story that's limited in scope with characters you actually care about, and stakes that you can feel. And Truman hit the nail on the head on the trauma support group when he criticized, and Truman had pretty strong opinions of Picard throughout, but when he criticized the scope of the show got so wild and out of control. You had space portals opening and mechanical tentacles coming out and snapping like a fucking cartoon, like chop chop chop, like and it was so absurd that there was just this disconnect. And I felt it's like the same thing in, again, Rise of Skywalker, like the resurgence of the Sith Empire and Palpatine and whatever the hell these crazy stakes were. Same deal with Picard. It got so fucking absurd. You checked out. It's not a story you can relate to, and it just comes off as stupid. Bring the scope down. Tell something small and personable, and reconnect with your viewership.
So pivoting back to Voyager for the last few minutes here. Um, Season 4 represents the end of your and I's favorite producer to talk shit about, and that is Jerry Taylor. We have risen our fist at Jerry Taylor many times, and this marks the end of her run as showrunner of Voyager. It's Brandon Braga afterwards, and he's got a much different take than Jerry Taylor did. We spoke specifically on multiple occasions, particularly early on. We kind of faded away from it as a discussion point, but now seems like the right time to pick it back up. Is Jerry Taylor's use of the feminine voice as a unique storytelling tool? Like she had a real line she was trying to take with how she was using her cast and crew and how she was doing her storytelling that you could feel, I think, a lot more early on, and then it kind of you see the resurgence here in season 4 with the use of Seven of Nine, and her relationship with Janeway is a huge focal point the entire time. Overall, what do you think? Like you got to see 4 seasons of Jerry Taylor, 2 of her as showrunner because she took over season 3, as you recall, killing off Lon to all of our regrets. Um, did it
You
work?
bitch.
Did it not work? What do you think?
There are shining moments, and the gift again. We already talked about it, and I think that's what prompted it was so much girl power, and I'm saying that in a good way. The Beck doll through the scale through the roof. Um, the overshadowing problem with season 4 again, it was a 7 to 9 show. I think that had they taken 7 of 9 and treated her reconnecting with her humanity with the same pacing uh, as they did Kess's Jedi powers, where it was a little bit here, a little bit there, and then a lot with the resolution where they finally make it clear, it would have destroyed all the complaints I had about 7 of 9 in this season. I think as a the feminine voice through season 4, yeah, it wasn't as deep as it was in previous episodes with the power of Kess, and I think the gratuitous sex angle they played undermined pretty much any potency it had. I'll be glad to see Jerry Taylor go. Like you said, we already did our season 1 or season 5 episode 1 review. There's a very different tone with Branagh. Um, I will say that his curse holds true, and that he's got some real shining gems under his belt. But he's a Stephen King. He's very good at setting up a great story, and then having something dumb squander that, and then getting into the details of that dumb thing, and really just running it into the dirt needlessly. But the beginning's fucking always awesome. I like the fact he seems to be setting the table for more high concept sci-fi. That there's some darker, more humanistic elements at play. Where the series is going to go from here, to get to Darius's question, I know there's a lot more to go on with the Borg. I know that Janeway's going to be kicking a lot of Borg ass. I know we've got some more bullshit with the Q coming up just from our conversations, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
season 4 was such a marked improvement, I think, over season 2 and season 3 in its own self-referential status and growth. That if they continue on those trends, I'm already happy with what I'm seeing, and it's going to take some real heinous shit to sour me. And if you're saying that season 5 is when most people say it starts getting good, I've got some real high hopes.
A lot of strong episodes to come. Um, we we already got our taste of Captain Proton, so but I won't say anything more since we go into that a lot next week. So, um, where would you clearly rank season 4 as the best so far? I guess we kind of spoiled that question. Um, season 4 top, season 4 below season 3. What's the worst season that we've seen so far? I think it's probably clearly 2.
Too. I mean, let me read through these real good for you real quick. My wall of shame here: tattoo, elogium, 37s, non sequitur, twisted, innocence. That's Charles at Tuvok in charge. Resolutions. I don't remember this. Prototype, dreadnought. Some real Balana clunkers in there, like just bad waste of time episodes. Yeah, season 2 absolutely the worst. Season 3 had some infuriating stuff with Q and the Gray and false prophets, but yeah, I think categorically season 4 has been the best. I mean, there's always something good each episode. I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, and there's been some very very strong entries into my all-time Hall of Fame. So
All right.
um,
Well, thanks.
time well spent.
That's all we can ask for as we watch a 25-year-old television show. So
Yeah,
that'll wrap up our discussion for the V'ger Please season 4. Rest in peace. Live broadcast. We'll get this uploaded for everybody else's consumption that couldn't join us live for Thursday. Thank you everybody in chat. Thank you for everybody that participated. Hope it was fun
I
for
want to
you
make a
guys.
request. Anybody out there that disagreed with any of the stuff we said, specifically award nominations and assignments, please jump onto the trauma support group on
Yes.
Facebook with your picks for the best, the worst, the weakest shits, the best sci-fi moments.
Get on there. I will fight you. It's fine. I enjoy it. And
Tell us why Picard was the best ever,
oh, I don't know if you
or
want.
don't keep that to yourself. I want to also take a special moment here and really acknowledge the community that we have. There's not thousands of us out there. You know, we've got 200-ish solid listeners, and the people that we do have come out and interact with us on Twitter and whatever. Thank you for always being civil. Thank you for always being fun. I don't know what the fuck's going on with 2020, but man, there is such a polar divide in the Trek viewership out there. And I see some of these other Facebook groups, the ship posting groups, the counter ship posting groups, and it's just so polarized and nasty. And you can't really identify with either camp without seeing something really ugly and saying, Jesus Christ, what's I don't I don't want to be a part of this. This is ugly for one reason or another reason. And I always come back to what we've got. I appreciate the way everybody treats each other, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the laughs we're able to have.
Everybody respects that everyone's coming from a place of love on their appreciation of Trek. And like Soren, one of our listeners from overseas, I think he was a bigger fan of Picard than most. And he had a bit of a challenge of say something nice about the episode that I always took up when we were talking about Picard episodes on the group. And I'm like, here's my my Soren sponsored good thing of the episode. You know, like I always like engage. Like, okay, I'm gonna find one good thing. So yeah, it's just a little anecdote of overall it's a cool community, and if that appeals to you, you want to like jump in on that. I know Facebook's like, whatever, not exactly the best faceless corporation to give your personal data, but it's the best way we have to cultivate that kind of community, and we are happy to have you join. Just go ahead and apply, and we'll get you included. So, and of course, how could we possibly conclude a discussion of season 4 without one last shout out to say thank you so much to everyone who contributed to get that cameo from Robert Picardo to celebrate our 100th episode. It really meant the world to Peter and I. That was incredibly cool, and it goes to it goes to show how cool you guys are. That we do this podcast for fun for a couple hundred people, and you think so highly of it that y'all kicked in real money to make that happen. We appreciate
And a final thank you to Ian Sarah. That the hands down best part of the fucking Picard series was
it.
that
Yes.
rendition of the Inner Light theme. Like, I'm legit sad we're not doing Picard anymore, because I'm not going to hear that on a weekly basis anymore. And I would make that my ringtone on my phone if I didn't want to punish all the dogs that may be around at the moment when I get a phone call. And so, much love. Joe, your mic died again, man. Gee whiz.
I edit next week that my mic didn't cut out halfway through that.
Your mic just cut out halfway through that.
Crap.
I hope that the whole Zencaster thing didn't get botched because it lost your audio. All right, man, let's wrap this up.
All right.
We held these people captive too long.
All right. Thanks to everybody, and we will see you next week with a review of Night. See ya.